As you all know, this is a year-long program, and every week's a little different with a focus on some aspect of personal and spiritual growth and how those things intertwine. And the spiritual and personal growth work is really fit into the context of a seasonal format, using that as something of a template for the whole of human experience, so that whatever we're doing here in some way correlates with what nature is doing. And this time of year, just a month away from the summer solstice, is in a lot of parts of the world a time when energy and growth are just surging. It's when light is most on the rise, but before it hits its turning point in, just about a month, a little more than a month, and then starts to wane. And this is the time of year that I like to address the consequences of too much energy. And the written materials, if you're not sure how to get to the written materials, I'll talk about that before we're done. They're on my website. They just often add to what we talk about here. Sometimes they're even a little different, but they often have more information than I can get to here. Much of the written materials on this week's lesson is about spiritual emergencies that happen when spiritual awakenings happen too fast. And the lesson material actually goes into some of the specifics of what a spiritual emergency is and how to deal with one. And it also looks at how to discern whether or not our chosen spiritual path is working for us, or maybe keeping us stuck in some ways. Now, in our work here tonight, I'm not going to follow the lesson too closely. It's a little bit more than I could get to. And our spiritual work tonight really is going to be directed more toward raising our capacity to receive and to hold and to work with spiritual light. So the exercise we're going to do is to help rewire us individually, to be a channel for more energy, and to raise the power level of our whole group as one, as a whole. And this is going to make the manifesting work that we do next season all the more effective. So one of the things I want to talk about, this may seem surprising, about the fear of miracles and some of the ways that we may tend to resist opening to spiritual power. And I want to just do a little personal reflection around this. So just close your eyes for a moment and turn your attention inward. Take a couple of deep breaths. And just imagine that today a power is awakened in you. And I'm not talking about an ordinary power. I'm talking about a miraculous power that singles you out from other people. For example, imagine that suddenly you now have the power to perform healing miracles. Or maybe you suddenly develop the ability to see into the future, or to see angels, or to hear messages of guidance that others can't hear. This happens to people. Sometimes it does. It happens very suddenly. Imagine what it would be like if one of these abilities just suddenly happened to you. Maybe you become able to manifest things instantaneously with your thoughts. Or what if you now had the ability to attract an enormous flood of money, and you are free to use it any way you please, to indulge yourself, to make a difference in the world, to create something, all up to you. Maybe you suddenly develop the ability to awaken healing powers in others, or to inspire and lead those around you, or maybe to bring peace into contentious circumstances, or some other undreamed power. Just take a moment to really imagine what it would be like to go to sleep tonight, knowing that this power is now a part of who you are. Just imagine it as though it's real. How do you feel? Can you sleep? Are you burdened? Are you excited? Do you feel blessed and grateful, or do you feel afraid? And imagine waking up with this big power. How do you then go about your life? Do you do what you normally do, or does everything change? What do you tell your friends? And what if people start looking to you for help and direction? What if many people want things from you? How does it feel to live with this power? Does it challenge the limits of what you believe you can or should be, do, or have? Would it just uncomfortably shake your whole sense of reality? Does it seem too big to be real? Would it just make it feel like the ground beneath your feet was shaking? Or does your ego run away with this power so that you feel maybe elevated and above others? Does it leave you feeling more evolved than other people? Or does it leave you more humble than before? Is your stronger motivation to help others? To show off what you can do? Or to hide the ways that you're now different? How does it change you and change your life and change people's expectations of you? Do you feel more connected to other people or more separate? More at peace or more conflicted? Does it feel like a gift or does it feel like a burden? So just open your eyes and come back. Take a deep breath. Now, knowing how we would truly feel is hard to fathom until we're really faced with a miracle. People who win the lottery are notoriously bad at managing their money and having a good experience after that. Although, don't we all think, yeah, sure, I'd like to win the lottery. Yeah, bring it on. Miraculous shifts take us beyond the realm of the familiar, beyond what we fully understand, and they can be overwhelming. And along with, or sometimes instead of just rejoicing, we can find ourselves actually contracting in fear. And it might start as just an inflow of new energy. Maybe it takes the form of healing or a financial windfall or the awakening of a spiritual gift or an ecstatic spiritual experience. And it becomes an uncomfortable overload when we find that we just can't really turn it off at will and go back even for moments to the comfortable, smaller life as we knew it. Now, well-known pioneers of the human potential movement, Stanislav Grof and Christina Grof, they're well known for their work just going back to the 60s. They've identified a whole syndrome related to energy overload, and they've named that spiritual emergencies. Google that, you'll find a lot of information on it. And signs of a spiritual emergency might include an ecstatic and overwhelming experience of God, or a too much energy feeling, and it might be accompanied by a whole variety of physical symptoms. And spiritual emergencies may also involve sudden awakening of intuitive gifts, like clairvoyance or clairaudience, or out-of-body experiences where conscious awareness separates from the physical body. A person might develop a sharpened intuitive knowledge of things that they have no physical way of knowing. Now, most of us never have to deal with the problems related to spiritual emergencies, where we feel like an energy spigot has been turned on and we just can't turn it off, because it's more likely for us to unconsciously keep our energy spigot so tightly controlled that we shut down the flow of God energy, like way before it can become overwhelmingly profuse. Most of us are working on opening it up rather than, kind of shutting it down a bit. So we generally don't realize we're afraid of miracles until they're upon us. One of my favorite examples is a healer I used to know, very competent healer, who was especially known for all the incredible, remarkable ways he had healed himself. That's how his healing practice began. He had a terminal heart disease. His doctor basically told him to get his affairs in order, and he probably had less than a year to live. Healed that, poof, lived decades more. He was diabetic, poof, healed that. He'd injure himself and poof, in a day or two, it'd be, practically gone. He would also heal dental issues, instantaneously. And he had actually received training from the master dental healer, Dr. Willard Fuller. That's how I met him. We both went through Dr. Fuller's trainings. And he had no doubt that all things are possible. When you go to Dr. Fuller's healings, you just saw all kinds of things happen. People would grow new fillings right before your eyes. They'd leave with gold in their mouth. They'd leave with new teeth, crazy, miraculous things. So he had absolute faith that everything is possible. And he decided he was going to grow back his own missing tooth. And because of his own experience with Dr. Fuller and his personal track record with self-healing, he thought it would be a snap. He thought, easy peasy. And so he did. He set about healing himself in the way he had on many occasions. And he soon experienced this very pronounced cracking sensation in his jaw, in the area of the missing tooth. And as he recognized these, tangible signs of his healing intent manifesting, and this happened in the blink of an eye. He didn't think about this. It was like automatic. His instinctive first response was this big, fearful, no, stop, which immediately stopped the crackling. Now, needless to say, he did not grow a new tooth that day. And he was surprised at his own automatic response to what he assumed to be a healing in progress. And he took it as a sign that he still had a little bit of work to do in stretching his mind open to the limitlessness of healing. Now, there's a lot of different reasons that we may clamp down on anything beyond what we're used to, including miracles. We may have personal issues of worthiness. Those ingrained beliefs that we don't deserve so much. or fearful expectations that if we have more, we'll just be that much more disappointed when we lose it. Another reason we might shut down rather than embrace miracles is just how mind-boggling they are. Our minds try to make sense of something that often can't be processed through the filters of what we already know. And then we start doubting and questioning our own perceptions. Our inner dialogue just starts asking, did that really happen? It's disorienting to have reality as we've known it thrown into question. And we wonder, well, if that did happen, then what is real? And then then we feel a little out of control. The fear that we're losing control takes over, and we grasp all the more tightly to what's familiar. We might even experience a little bit of a crisis in identity. Like, who am I if all I thought I knew for certain isn't true? I once dated a guy, this is decades ago, a very staunch evangelical Christian Republican, very, miracles don't happen anymore. And also a millionaire, gazillionaire, really. He was an international investment banker. And he was always up at weird hours of the night just doing deals. And he and I were on the phone one night, just chatting, catching up. And he was agonizing about a deal. He was waiting to hear from someone in another country, just waiting to. And he didn't believe in all the stuff I did. And he actually was a minister. He was very identified with his spiritual beliefs. And I said, you want me to do a little, experiment with you? Sure. And I just led him through a little visualization where he just imagined this deal coming together easily, effortlessly, in a way that was win-win for everyone, very quickly, easily, poof, done. And he's a pretty high-powered guy, so I'm sure his ability to just focus in and visual is probably pretty strong. And he just went with that. It's like, yeah, whatever. And he hung up. He called me back in 5 minutes. And he was screaming at me. He said, "What did you do?" The minute he hung up with me, he got a call about the deal. Poof, it just came together easy peasy. Things came together that he wasn't even expecting. It just worked out well for everyone. It was like way better than he expected. And he was, instead of being like, wow, thanks, that was a pretty neat little trick, he was like, don't you ever do that again. And I realized that it just shook a lot of his foundations of what's real and who he is and what is supposed to happen and what's not supposed to happen. And that was more important to him than, this deal coming together easily. So we have this stuff ingrained in us that oftentimes we don't even know is there until we're really faced or really challenged by something that is an affront to maybe even a very limited form of reality that we just took for granted. And a lot of this happens in the blink of an eye, just nipping miracles in the bud before we even know that, we did that. So becoming aware of this just instinctive resistance can help slow it down and can give us opportunities to more consciously choose rather than automatically react. Now, one of the things that stops miracles from occurring is the presence of a collective disbelief in them. In my work, I use a lot of references to science and to research to validate that some of the spiritual premises, the metaphysical premises that we work with here. And that's because of the huge role that science has played in shaping our Western civilization expectations and beliefs. Just for example, anyone who has ever sought alternative health treatments that go against medical advice, even after doing careful research with a lot of confidence in their choices, might still find it to be a bit of a frightening and lonely road, simply because there's such a strong collective energy field of belief saying that doctors know best. And it can be a difficult energy field to go up against and still maintain peace of mind. And for anyone making this kind of choice with their health, it's really important to the success of treatment to stay immersed in the energy, not before you've chosen, but if you've chosen that this is what I want to do. It's important to stay in the energy field of those who have faith in it, and to, stay away from those who don't. The well-known modern-day biochemist Rupert Sheldrake called these collective energy fields morphic fields, and used the term to describe the cumulative memory of a species or a human system of thought. Morphic fields exist beyond time and space. They're developed through repetition, and they make it easier and easier, kind of like a worn pathway for subsequent individuals to follow in the same pattern. It also makes well-worn patterns of thought harder to resist. Like that one I was talking about that says to follow the doctor's orders because the doctor knows best. Well, a lot of times, science is an important thing, and we're seeing, some real challenges to that these days just around vaccination. And science, is a wonderful part of modern life. And sometimes doctors don't know everything. And, it can be very difficult to discern once we get kind of stuck in the rut of that morphic field of doctors always know what's best. It's almost like there's a big new morphic field of, kind of crazy thought starting these days around. It's interesting. I'll have to kind of ponder that, just give some thought to what that might be doing for us, of just all the conspiracy theories and all the QAnon and the vaccination implants little things that change our DNA, and that's becoming a little morphic field of its own. But there are actually, before all this super crazy started, there are areas of the world that are still infused with miracle-friendly spiritual traditions, where miracles are accepted and expected and regularly appear, even though the United States isn't so much one of those. An interesting example of this is in Poland, where I traveled some years back, maybe a decade or so ago, and did some teaching. I taught healing. Mother Mary is just very, very beloved there. And there's a lot more willingness to be open to miracles. And so I was being taken to these spots where Mother Mary just presented herself, where people would have visions of her on a semi-regular basis. And even more interesting is that the healer, amazing healer, who sponsored my trip over there with another healer who I was working with at the time, he had an ability to hold these little plastics or plaster statues of Mary. Nothing special, the kind that get cranked out by the gazillions, little plastic plaster statue. He would hold them, and then suddenly those statues would start crying rose oil tears. Pretty cool stuff. And, I didn't really believe that completely. I've seen everything. I know anything is possible, but I didn't know this guy. I had not really, road tested it myself. I just heard about this until one night I was at the front of the room. And my interpreter was next to me, and behind us was a great big long table, and everybody else was in the, like a ways away from us on the other side of the room. I was leading an exercise. Now behind us on the table were these two statues of Mary that this guy had touched and gotten to leak rose oil. In fact, they had little mats, little cloths under them, because people would put a little cloth under these statues to collect the rose oil. Then people would take them as little, sacred objects. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm a big fan of Mother. So I was happy to have them back there. But as I was leading this exercise, it was really raising the vibration. It was like heart energy just flowing. It really was this little peak moment. All of a sudden, my interpreter and I started smelling rose oil, like rose from behind us, from right back here. And I mean, everybody in the group, there was nobody who had, any rose oil up their sleeves, because everybody had their hands up like this. They were doing things like energetically with partners, and there was nothing else going on. We could see everything. Like everybody was far away. The rose oil was right there. And we smelled it first, and then other people in the room started smelling it. And even it got so strong, it was like Mother Mary was wearing way too much perfume that day. Some people who are very chemically sensitive or had allergies had to go open the windows. And we looked behind, and there were all the tears like coming streaming down her face. So, I feel like what allowed that to happen was the culture of Poland that was open to these wonderful, beautiful miracles around healing and the Blessed Mother. And in the United States, we don't really have that. Science and even many of our spiritual traditions have kind of eradicated miracles from the collective mental airwaves. In fact, my mentor, Dr. Willard Fuller, was at one time a Baptist minister, said he had to leave the Baptists because they denied miracles. And he was like seeing miracles all the time. He was like, a channel for miracle making. So science and even a lot of religions have just eradicated miracles until recently, I would say, because now new science is starting to provide a doorway through which miracles can enter. Because science, our rational Western minds, we have to understand things. It has to make sense. And science is making sense of miracles. And the more rational miracles seem to us, the less our rational minds are going to interfere with them. And the more we will look for and find miracles, we will allow them. Yet at the same time, there's a responsibility that comes with miracles. And that's another reason that we might at times repel them subconsciously, not intentionally. Miracles are a manifestation that we've tapped the limitless energy of God, which you could also call the 0-point field. Well, that would be the name from the scientific world of this energy field. And energy, by whatever name you give it, is a form of power. And with power comes the responsibility of making a bigger mark on the world. When we have this kind of energy, we really can no longer live the role of being a hapless victim with no power over the external circumstances of our lives. We just can't play that role anymore. It's no longer valid. And if we have a miraculous healing, for example, we go from having the depleted capability of an ill person to the greater ability of a well person. And suddenly we have more choices to make. and people may expect more from us. We may expect more of ourselves. We may have, our inner adult might kick in and say, we have to get back to work. We have to do our duty. All those kinds of things that maybe we liked having a break from. Miracles change us so that we just can't help but make a bigger impact on the world around us, for better or worse, which can feel like kind of a burden if it's unfamiliar or if it's not something we really want. Now, one last pitfall of miracles that I'm going to mention here is what the ego can do with them. The ego only believes in the reality. Oh, here comes somebody. The reality that we can fashion and fathom with our physical senses. The ego is very much connected to, the real, what we can touch, that reality world, not the bigger reality that we can't see. And the ego operates from a place of fear because, this world that we can see and touch and know from our senses, means that us humans or all us, little life forms are really pretty fragile and vulnerable. So the ego tries to control the external environment to maintain order and safety. And as we experience going beyond the confines of our ego, which we do when we open to God energy, our ego automatically responds protectively to restore order and to bring back a sense of control by, pulling things back into the realm of familiar. This is normal. It's normal human behavior. And we can expect to have some kind of ego reaction of one sort or another after we have a big God experience. Some part of us is going to pull back, even if it's saying, did that really happen? I don't know, maybe I was just imagining it, or something, or maybe I'm kind of special. It's normal. We just don't have to take these ego reactions seriously. Typically when we have a powerful God experience, the ego's response is some combination of, oh God, I'm weird, or, oh God, I'm special. It can go either way. And the I'm weird voice tells us, well, we're maybe kind of crazy and no one will believe us. Maybe we shouldn't believe ourselves. It tells us we're different and separate from everyone else. Maybe that there's something wrong with us, and messages like that. Now, the opposite, the I'm special voice, tells us that maybe we're just a little more evolved than everyone else because of our special condition, that maybe we're specially chosen, maybe we're specially gifted, elevated, maybe we know a little more. And paradoxically, these two voices go hand in hand. A person will probably be more aware of one of these voices than the other, but the opposing voice will be whispering in the background. The dark, shadowy side of feeling specially chosen is a more fearful awareness of responsibility and aloneness. And on the other side of this coin, along with the disconcerting feeling of, oh my God, I'm kind of weird because I have this experience. There's something wrong with me. Invariably, along with that experience, somewhere deep down, is maybe just a little bit of pride in having a special condition. And the kernel of truth in the delusion, and I will call it a delusion, of being specially chosen. There is a kernel of truth there, is that we are specially chosen for an important spiritual mission that only we can do. And the awareness ceases to be delusional when we recognize that everyone has been specially chosen for their own unique missions. This is the difference between schizophrenia and, evolving. When we're evolving and we have spiritual maturity, our, quote unquote, specialness really leaves us more humble and more able to relate to others and see that specialness in everyone around us. On the other hand, mental illness and delusional thinking is more the perspective that I am special. I am, I am the savior. I am it. I am the one and only chosen one. That's the difference. So I'm way more chosen than everybody else. So once again, just reflect for a moment. Imagine how it would feel for you to live with a miraculous power. What if you suddenly developed the power to perform healing miracles, or the power to see or hear things that others can't, or could manifest things instantaneously with your thoughts? This healer in Poland that I talked about, who could manifest Mary statues crying, he was a psychic surgeon. So he would, I actually saw him perform a psychic heart surgery, a heart replacement. And then he lifted his hand up like this. His sleeves were rolled way up. I was just 2 feet away from him. I could see the inside of his hand. He closed it. There's nothing in his hand. He closed it. He opened it, and boom, there was a little teeny red pill there, little red capsule that, the angels had given him to give to his patient. He said, "Here, take this." He just manifested that, poof. Maybe you develop the ability to attract an enormous flood of money, or the ability to inspire others, maybe to awaken their healing powers, or to lead others, or to create peace in contentious circumstances. And suppose you had these powers and people started turning to you for help and direction. Ask yourself now, what magnitude of miraculous power would feel like too much for you to receive? What magnitude of power would boggle your mind and upset your belief systems? Or uncomfortably challenge the limits of what you believe you can or should receive? Or the limits of who you believe you are? What magnitude of power would create burdensome or frightening new responsibilities? Or just cause you to feel separate and alone? So here we go. We're going to go deeper with this. This is where we really do some important energy work that is a kind of initiation, opening us to receive and channel and use higher amounts, higher vibrations of energy, greater degrees of spiritual light. So as I say before we do these kinds of exercises, know that, this can be a life-turning moment for you. This could be when you awaken your miracle powers, when you start to see miraculous shifts in your circumstances. So don't go into it counting on that. Do go into this letting go and letting God, trust the divine force to take us where we need to go in this. And close your eyes and just relax your body. And quiet your thoughts with some deep, slow breaths. Everything relaxing, letting go, everything you don't need right now. Relax, release. Go deeper. And in your own way, just invoke the power and the wisdom of your higher self, the part of you that is something greater than your physical senses, your physical body, your physical reality, the part of you that is spirit. And let your sense of identification begin to shift from the small self that is your personality and your body to your greater spiritual self. And you see yourself now as a beautiful and radiant being of light. And now see yourself joined by the higher selves of the other participants in this Miracles course. Imagine that we've all left our bodies and human personalities behind for the moment and are gathering in a magnificent sacred arena in the spiritual realm. We're all beings of light, forming a powerful circle for healing and support. And first you see those of us who are here tonight, right now. And because in the spiritual realm, time is illusionary, you can now see the lights of all the souls who have in the past and will in the future gather for this ritual. There are just many, many of them, thousands and thousands. And recognize how much more powerful we are together. We can come together this way simply by being imaginative enough to hold the intention, to picture it. That's all it takes. We know from a growing body of research that consciousness is that powerful. It can transcend space and even time. So see us all together now. And this circle quickens our growth and awakens our intuition and heightens our magnetism to our highest good, so that whatever has seemed difficult in the past can come more easily now. And just feel the energy of the circle building and building. And imagine that the light of our circle has grown so bright, so amazingly bright, that it attracts to us an even greater light. And picture this as the most brilliant spiritual sun, shining light to all of us. To all of us. Know this to be the light of divine love. And this light is profoundly peaceful. Even though it's bright, it's soft. And you let it just wash through you, melting away anything that has dimmed the radiance of your own inner light. And it just leaves behind the deepest peace. And invite this light now to rewire your energy circuits so that you are going forward able to assimilate and disseminate a larger flow of spiritual light. And this increased light energy enables you to more easily move beyond the struggles of your life and into joy and productivity. And it empowers you to serve the world around you in a much bigger way. So take just a moment to let the light change you. Let it do its thing, rewiring you, changing you, reconfiguring your very DNA. And open your mind to any messages or insights that come to you about this new step into power. And as you're filled with the deepest peace of divine light and love, you're now more powerfully radiant than you've ever been before. And use this energy to send a ray of healing light to each person in our circle, past, present, and future, knowing that there are thousands and that your light is limitless. Just let your light join with theirs to assist in their transformation and healing. Your light is limitless because you are tapped into the divine. And as you do this, recognize that everyone in the circle is doing the same for you. Thousands. And in this way, together, we assist one another to gently rise into our spiritual power, easily, each at our own pace, in our own way, with no need for any unsettling side effects, no need for the downside of spiritual emergencies, because we've chosen to do this with much greater consciousness, intentionality, and softness. And just see the network of light that is formed, and take a moment to just enjoy its beauty and its peace and its healing. And if there is a special intention you have for healing, maybe healing of body or mind, or a need for clarity, or a desire to manifest some important dream, just hold that lightly in mind now. Don't strain or problem solve, just hold it as a light and pleasant daydream. Don't be concerned about whether it's possible or not, just dream. Dream in a way that it just brings a smile to your face. And then just let it go as lightly as a butterfly that came to light on your hand. And now gently just let your experience come to a completion. Bring yourself back with some deep breaths. I'm going to let you all go, and always feel free to come a little bit early and we'll do readings. That's always a fun way for us to hang out. Until next week, I love and bless you all. Namaste.